Okay, folks, welcome to this hearing. We usually start the evening meeting with a public comment period, which is supposed to have nothing to do with the application that we're going to review. It's for anything else. So my name is Penny Miller. I am the co-chair, acting as the chair this evening because Charlie Van Winkle recused himself, as did Danny Lee, another member of the board. So before I start with our procedure, which is all written down, so I'll be reading it, I just wanted to once again have the DRB introduce themselves to you, and then I'll begin. So we'll have the DRB introduce ourselves, and then I'll ask if there's any public comments. So I'm Penny Miller.
Karen McKnight.
Brian Birch.
Phil Romanoff, the zoning administrator.
Jamie Bartlett.
Mark Green.
Mark Hamlin.
Matt Chappick.
So do we have any public here for public comment unrelated to this application? Okay, good. So then we'll start right in with the Brewster River Mountain Bike Club hearing. This is a hearing pertaining to the conditional use review and the application of the Brewster River Mountain Bike Club for an after-the-fact conditional surface water encroachment for the construction of a bridge over the Settlement Brook and thus within its surface water setback, and also a variance for its construction within the district's front setback on land owned by Nicole C.W. Ritchie and Elizabeth A. McEntee? McEntee. It should be McEntee. All right, McEntee at 348 Irish Settlement Road in Underhill, Vermont. This application is subject to review under the 2011 Unified Land Use and Development Regulations as amended March 3rd, 2020, and the 2015 Road, Driveway, and Trail Ordinance as amended December 18th, 2015. Conditional use review is intended to ensure compliance with standards addressing the potential impacts of development on adjoining properties, the neighborhood and or zoning district in which the development is located, and the community at large. Typically, land uses are subject to conditional use review because their scale, intensity, and potential for off-site impacts warrant more careful scrutiny by the Development Review Board. Standards and conditions to be imposed relate to the identification, avoidance, and or mitigation of potential impacts. Should additional information be required, the board does reserve the option of continuing the hearing to a time and date certain in order for that information to be submitted and reviewed by this board. All right, we went around and identified the DRB members who are present. And do we have anyone to go to meeting at this point, Cal?
No.
No, okay. Are there any members of the public in attendance to comment about the application? And if so, can you please identify yourselves and state your address for the record? If your mailing address differs from your physical address and wish to receive a copy of the decision, please provide that address as well. So I know that we had a site visit right before this meeting, and I know that Cal took a lot of names, and I believe almost all of you were at the site visit. But if we could just go through everyone's name again and address, mailing address, that would be great. Starting with you, Dan.
Dan Clayton, Danny, most of you know me as I live at 559 Pleasant Valley Road, and I'm a member of the bike club in here as one with Mike as to answer your questions.
Thank you.
Nicole Ritchie. You're at 348 Irish Settlement Road. Elizabeth McEntee.
Do you go by Lizzie?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. And maybe next row.
Pat Weisel. We live at 626 Irish Settlement, but our mailing address is Post Office Box 71, Underhill Center.
Mike Weisel, also a BRMBC board member, and here for the purpose of applying for this permit. 626 Irish Settlement, PO Box 71, Underhill Center.
Jeff Moulton, 49 Highland Road, Underhill, Vermont.
David Demarest, 111 Fuller Road, which was previously New Road 144 before a lot of issues. My PO box is 144 Underhill, Vermont.
Underhill Center, David?
Underhill,
Underhill, okay,
District 40.
okay,
I used to do Underhill Center.
okay.
I'm Dan Lee. I live at 15 Range Road. I'm on the Development Review Board and recusing myself here as a resident.
And Will and Pam Billings, 310 Irish Settlement Road.
Okay, thank you. All right. Are there any state or municipal representatives present other than the Planning and Zoning Administrator, Cal Romanoff, and acting in their representative capacities? I don't think so. Copies of the rules of procedure that the board follows, as well as an interested parties info sheet, are available to all attendees for review on the town's website. It can also be obtained from the Planning and Zoning Administrator. And Cal, we usually have copies on the countertop. Do we have that?
No, but I can get some up.
Okay, that's what we, pre-pandemic, that's what we would do. Okay, this is an oath for interested parties. Only those interested persons who have participated either orally or through written statements in a DRB proceeding may appeal a decision rendered in that proceeding to the Environmental Division of Superior Court. If you are an applicant, representative of the applicant, or an interested party who wants to participate in the hearing, we ask that you clearly state your name prior to speaking. We will now swear in all those present who wish to speak tonight regarding the application. All individuals who plan to testify must take the following oath by responding, "I do," at the end of the following statement. Do you hereby swear that the evidence you give in the cause under consideration shall be the whole truth and nothing but the truth under the pains and penalties of perjury?
I do.
I do.
I do.
Are there any conflicts of interest, or have there been any ex parte communications on part of any of the board members? No, not here present. We've already talked about Dan and Charlie recusing themselves. All right, in regards to tonight's hearing process, to help alleviate interruptions and to allow for an efficient meeting, the board will be hearing from the following parties in the following order. First, we'll hear from the applicant or his representatives, so the Mountain Biking Club, the representatives. Then we'll hear from the interim zoning administrator, Cal Romanoff. He'll give a summary of his staff report. Then we'll hear from the members of the board, members of the public. Then we'll go back around again, the applicant and the representatives will have an opportunity to respond. Then we'll have the public once again give their responses, and then the board can ask more questions in the end. One of the things that I wanted to ask you tonight, because it looks like it could be an energetic evening, is to please address your comments to the board. Look me in the eyes if you need to, and not address one another. They're really, the questions and the comments come to the board, and if someone else needs to comment on it later, then that person addresses the comments to the board. So I'll try to keep my eyes on you so you'll remember to address them to the board. We also may have to limit people to 3, 4, 5 minutes if it gets a little too energetic when you speak. The board is allowed to ask questions of anyone, but you really can only ask questions through us, please. Okay, at this point, the information package, the staff report with its associated exhibits that was distributed by the interim zoning administrator prior to tonight's hearing will be entered into the record. And as we said, this is on our website, and we have some new exhibits, so those will be put on the website too. So Exhibit A is let me get this right, BRMBC, conditional use application. The Exhibit B is the BRMDC review, conditional use review hearing procedures, which is what I'm going through right now. Exhibit C is the development review application. Exhibit D is the Burlington Free Press notice. Exhibit F is the certificate of service. Exhibit G is a correspondence between the Agency of Natural Resources and the Planning and Zoning Administrator. Exhibit H is the zoning permit application, which has the signature of, I believe, either Lizzie or Nicole, both of them on it, and Mike Weisel as the BRMDC secretary. I is the correspondence between the PZA and the town administrator regarding whether an access permit was needed for this project. And J is a letter from David Demarest entitled, I believe, opposition to retroactive permits involving trail expansion. Okay, so as I said, they're available in the conditional use review file, actually the hard copy, and they'll also be on the website, updated on the website. We'll begin testimony by first hearing from the representative of the help me, Mike?
BRMVC.
BRMBC, yes, thank you. So would you please give us the short story of what this is about, the summary of what this is about?
The short story. When we built a bridge, we didn't get a permit. We're here to try to get a permit.
And after the fact permit.
A slightly longer story. Is it in the late 80s, early 90s? There was a bike trail, horse trail, a ski trail, a walking trail, a multi-use non-motorized trail that was used by residents of Underhill, and it went from a point on Fuller Road further uphill, further in than where we all parked tonight. And it went in a southerly direction and followed the ridge line all the way back to where I live at 626, way at the north end of our settlement road. And then properties were bought and sold at the south end of all that, off of Fuller Road, that eliminated the ability for people to go through there. So recently, after Nicole and Lizzie purchased their property from Chuck Alexander, we approached them and asked them if they would be willing to consider a slightly modified connection from that old trail up on the backside of their property down to Fuller Road where we built the new bridge. They said they would. They're trail users themselves, they're runners, they're skiers. And so we had a work day in May, and we made this short connection from the old trail down to the brook where you see that bridge now, and we built the bridge.
Pardon me, Mike, this is May of this year?
Yes,
Okay.
that's correct. There's not a whole lot more to it than that. It basically reconnects an old historic non-motorized trail from multi-use to Fuller Road in a slightly different location. And I think it's been pointed out already, right where that bridge is now, the one you all saw tonight. There was a small bridge when we started. That's one of the reasons we chose that spot, because Chuck Alexander had put a bridge across the stream at that point when he owned the property. He told us that he built it in 2007 or 2008, he wasn't quite sure. And it was right down at the brook level. And we felt that what we were replacing it with was far superior in terms of allowing for stream flow and with the bridge and safety and all of that. So there's a slightly longer short story.
Okay, thank you. That was a good story. And if I could just ask you one question, just because I'm, pardon my ignorance, of some of the Underhill Center roads, I'm from the other side of town. Fuller Road is a town road or a private road?
No, it's
Oh,
a
the
class
part
4
that
town road
Okay,
to a point,
okay,
and then it becomes a trail,
okay,
from what I understand, Cranebrook Trail.
okay.
And then it becomes New Road near the town garage and extends out to Pleasant Valley Road.
Oh, okay, but the segment that the bridge comes off of, that's
That's a
town
class 4 town
maintained
road
road.
called Fuller
Okay.
Road.
Okay, good, thank you. All right, do we want to hear from Cale to summarize your, and I could ask first, Danny, are you, you're also representing the bike club, do you have anything else that you want to add to?
No, I was literally just turning to Mike at that very moment to give a thumbs up because I
Okay.
think he
You summarized it well.
summarized it.
Okay, Cale, I'm sorry, your staff report, do you want to
Yep.
take us through your staff report?
Sure. I think I'll jump right to one of the new exhibits because I feel like there's a lot of talk today already about access issues. And when the bridge first came to our attention, that's what it came to our attention as like this is an access issue. So I looked into that, and that's what Exhibit I discusses. It's my analysis for Brad, which then went to the town attorney, and he agreed with the analysis that the highway and road ordinance, it applies only to driveways and town roads include town trails, which is the statutory term, where it used to be a highway and has been downgraded, or like whatever the terminology is, downgraded from a class 4 to a trail, as Cranebrook has been. So the highway ordinance would be applicable to Cranebrook Trail, but there's nothing in the road ordinance that applies to private trails. So with this analysis, it's just pointing out how the access concerns at least can't be cabined in the road and highway ordinance. So if we want to look at access stuff, it'll have to be through some conditional use standards. Those will be on page, find it for you.
That would be section 3 of our regs.
5.4B3, which is page 7 of the staff report. One of the conditional use review standards, traffic on roads and highways in the vicinity.
Right.
So that does open a possibility for the board to discuss some access stuff. It wouldn't be the same depth and analysis as an access permit, but that would be the provision if the board would like to discuss any access issues.
So what Cale is referring to is a page in the staff report that references section 5.4B3 in our zoning regulations.
Yep. And on top of that, though, it didn't need an access permit from our point of view. But in talking with the town attorney, he pointed out that even a small structure like this, as our regulations say, needs a permit. And there has been a general policy of the town where movable structures without a permanent foundation are often overlooked and people don't worry about permits. In this case, it's pretty secured. It'd be hard to make that argument that this is movable and doesn't have a foundation. So I think for that reason, it falls into needing a permit, and that's why we're here today.
So it needs a permit, Cale, but because it's in a setback,
yep.
That's why we're seeing it.
And yeah, because it crosses a named brook, which is within our regulations. Development can't occur within, I believe, 100 feet of the named brook without getting conditional use approval. So that's what took it out of the zoning administrator's hands and brought us here today for the hearing to discuss approving a conditional use as a encroachment on a surface water setback. And along with that, the surface water setbacks do the conditional use encroachments that are allowed for surface water setbacks do include public access points to surface waters, which is what the town is opining that this is. There's no clear spot anywhere in the regulations that discusses bridges. And this appears to be the only and best fit for a bridge to be discussed, because a bridge, by going over a river, is in effect an access point to that river. So within section 3.9 E2B, which is the conditional surface water encroachment, does allow for unpaved public paths intended for public access and recreation, including public access points to surface waters. One thing that came up in my review, though, is does it also encroach on the front setback from Fuller Road? And unfortunately, because the bridge, as it was, even though it might have fallen into the small movable structure without a foundation, and therefore didn't have a permit, it still technically needed one. So as a town representative, I'd be hard pressed to consider that a non-conforming structure for the purposes of those protections.
A pre-existing.
A pre-existing non-conforming structure is afforded protections, including reconstruction. But if you were to allow a bridge that was non-permitted because it was movable to get those protections, you could do the same thing anywhere else in town. For anyone's movable object, they could just start reconstructing and building it and using those protections. So it seemed best to me to not afford those protections here. In my opinion, the town's opinion. But that also still leaves open the option for a variance, which is a little bit harder than a waiver, but I did outline it in my staff report how I think it's doable as a variance. I can go through that together with you guys, or let me go to section 5.5 variances here. So those looking on, it's on page 9.
While Kel is getting that ready, because you folks didn't see the staff report, I just want to say that normally this sort of thing, a bridge, could get just a permit from Cal, but because it's going over running water, it's within a waterway setback, so that means it's called a conditional use and it has to come by us. And also, in addition to that, it's within the front setback of that zoning district, which is 30 feet is the front setback, so it impinges on that front setback. So that's another reason it has to come to us. So it's sort of a double reason that it comes to us, that we just have to review it and you could hold that thought.
Yep. And I'll just quickly go over it. I don't want to spend too much time to slow down the debate later, but there are 5 factors for variances. The first is that it has to have unique physical circumstances. I'm not going to go every through word here, that are peculiar and particular to the property, and that the unnecessary hardship is due to these conditions. It's of the town's opinion that the existence of Settlement Brook in close proximity to both Fuller Road and Irish Settlement is a unique physical circumstance that would not be found in every property. So, and from the town's opinion, it fits that first factor. The second factor is because the physical circumstances and conditions, there's no possibility the property can develop in strict conformance with these provisions. Staff here opines that the proximity of the Settlement Brook to Fuller Road, there's no real possibility to build the bridge within conformity of that front setback. And if you were to move the bridge, it's likely to also encroach on the front setback, or at very least, it would potentially impinge on the nearby dwellings or be completely inconvenient to the bike network. And then the third factor is the unnecessary hardship can't be created by the applicant. Here, it's clear the hardship is created by the brook, not the applicant. The variance has to be, it cannot alter the essential character of the neighborhood. That one's a little bit more debatable and wishy-washy. I didn't see anything obvious that made me think the bike trail in the neighborhood would significantly alter the neighborhood. I think that's open to discussion for you guys, but from the town's point of view, it does not. And then the last one is that the variance, if authorized, will be the minimum that will afford relief to the applicant and represent the least deviation possible from the regulations. It appears that is the case here. So from the town's point of view, it fits the variance factors. There's definitely room for debate there, but it is, from our point of view, it fits the variance factors.
Okay. So anything else for us, Cal, that you think you want to
I
cover?
think that's the high points.
Those are
I'm
the
happy to go over anything else that comes up in discussion as well, but those are the main points that I wanted to bring up tonight.
Okay, so now it's time for the DRB, having heard Cale's review, to ask questions of Cale or ask questions of the interested parties here. One thing I did want to say before we started is there's just a small typo in the front of this front of the staff report that it says it's in the Underhill Center Village District, but it's actually in the rural residential village district.
And that is reflected in the setback pages on page 3, but yes,
Yes,
it's missed on
right.
page 1. Thank you.
The setbacks. So I don't know that we have to go by turn with the alphabetical. So I think, what does the board have any questions for Cale or any questions of the
I
applicant?
have a clarification just on what you're talking about. So there were 2 points that required a variance. One was the fact that it's over, it's in a waterway setback or a surface
Right.
water setback. So by definition, any bridge at all requires a variance.
And it's not a,
Because
that's
we've never
not,
done a bridge before. So
right, that's a waiver, right?
That's, yeah, no, the bridge, the surface water aspect is the section 3.19 surface water encroachments, which allow river access. That's for the bridge itself. The variance is for the fact that the bridge stretches out into the front setback on Fuller Road. So the closest part of the bridge to the road is road right away is about 15 feet.
So
And
any
it should be
access,
30, so it is within that front setback.
so am I correct in thinking any access that's going to cross a waterway
Yeah.
from the road has to be in the front setback by definition? So, because we've seen plenty of driveways in town that have to cross a stream to get to the property.
Well, it doesn't have to be within the front setback. The stream could be 100 feet down.
Yeah.
No, I
away
mean,
from
if the stream is in the front
Yeah.
setback.
Yes, if the stream is in front, you're right,
Sorry.
exactly, right, yeah.
The driveways would get reviewed a little bit differently, but yes, you're correct in that.
Just trying to get clarification.
So, yeah, we don't actually, you're saying we don't actually need a waiver for crossing the water. We need a variance for the, but
For
you
the
were just
setback.
you were just making a case for why we don't need a waiver or why we're allowed to approve of something that goes across the street under section 3.19.
Yep.
Like that's, okay.
Yes.
Matt?
Well, so a variance would require a certain amount of footage? Or is that a waiver?
No, that's the waiver when it's set back from like the Historical Society,
Yeah.
from a waterway, but we're not, but this being a crossing, in a public access point crossing, Cale feels it's not the same situation.
Actually, I'll jump in there because during this review, it became clear to me that the waiver aspect of that Historical Society might not have been necessary. I think the 3.19
Oh,
encroachment stuff overrides the waiver, the waiver aspect, so there wouldn't need to be the 50% limit on the waiver, if that makes sense.
right, well, maybe, but definitely this one, this is considered a public access point, so under 3.19, it says we can permit this, where it's a permitted conditional encroachment. DRB says it's okay, then it's permitted. We don't have to do 1/2 of the
Yep,
setback
permitted.
under 3.19.
In this case, because we haven't looked at the whole lot plan, I assume what's being stated is that there is no other entry point onto that trail network that wouldn't cross that stream, that wouldn't require a stream crossing in the front setback. Is that what
It's not totally clear without a thorough survey, but it appears that way, or at least it's close. It's conceivable. I think it would take a large survey to determine if there's another location. Just all states should be close.
Yeah, that's what.
I mean, it's possible somewhere in here they might be able to scooch just out of the setback, but it's hard to say.
And this is a
And
pre-existing recreational path, right? Or was this only cut starting in May?
It sounds like you guys cut it recently, right?
Well,
The bridge was there.
the bridge was there, and there was a remnant of an old path that Chuck Alexander had used to get to the bridge.
Okay,
But once you get up above the bank into the woods, it kind of disappeared, it petered out. But within, I'm gonna say 50 feet or so of the brook bank, you could see where the old path led down to his little bridge.
Yeah.
But that really one of the thrust of this. The thrust of this was to get a new connection from Fuller Road to the historic path at the back of Lizzie and Nicole's property.
Okay.
Can we get that
And
clarified?
speaking to what you were talking about, another point on the frontage might get rid of this setback issue. I mean, Lizzie and Nicole don't want the bike trail or this multi-purpose trail, really. It's a foot trail too. It's a ski trail. They don't want coming down across their front yard to connect up to Irish Settlement Road down by their driveway. You know, I mean, take into account what the landowner wants too.
This is part of, I mean.
Can we see that on
Starting
a plot?
You're right, I mean, I don't want it.
Yeah.
'Cause there's references being made to people's property and locations of things.
There is a picture.
This one, you mean?
Is there an aerial view?
And there's this one with the map.
So where is the house located? And where's the?
Oh, yeah, that's on one of the exhibits. There is one. Down here.
May I ask one question?
Oh, not, you got it. Can you write it down, Dave? We gotta, that, you really come after the DRB ferrets out there. We gotta
That help?
review things.
Sure. And
So it looks like this is,
Enlarge that a bit.
Yeah, that's an open question.
Thank you.
that looks like it's
You know,
Lizzie's
should I turn
house,
the
is
lights
that right?
on for folks or?
And the neighboring house over here.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, where's the,
The bridge?
no, her house.
I think this is it right here. Let me,
Yeah,
that's your
Yeah.
house, okay.
good job.
Okay,
and the neighbor house right here.
yeah.
And Mike, the trail comes up like this, like something?
Yeah,
More
more
or
or
less.
less, up to very close to the back property line.
Okay.
Keep drawing
Like
now. Well, maybe not quite so headed south, but
That's though, interestingly, where it joins the old sugar
north,
road.
sorry.
I mean, you just happen to stop at that point, but that's where, and then that becomes Nancy Bradford's right after that, but it's,
Up here.
yeah, that old sugar
Historically,
road
the
runs.
access was, if you find the next house down, it was right about at that boundary point.
Right.
Yep.
Exactly right.
Okay.
And it became a bog.
Mark, does that
Yeah,
illuminate things
just
for
getting
you?
more clarity.
Okay.
Thank you.
And whose property is the lower blue?
Square?
What do you want to know?
The lower property owner?
Oh, I think it's, is it Jessica? Jessica
Yeah,
Barber?
I should have it here.
Okay.
I was just curious if they were here, if they needed to say something.
Any other questions for Kale or for the applicant? I have a question. So I gather from going to the site visit, and I'll ask you this, the applicant, that there is not a parking lot associated with this. I want to talk about this out loud now, that there's not a parking lot, that this is, if you park your car, you typically would access this trail from somewhere else, or would you park along the road to access this trail? What typically happens, or what have you seen since May?
That people would ride from the north end of the trail system down the page on that picture,
Okay,
take the new piece of connector that was built in May, take the bridge, and then come up into Fuller Road, and maybe go to Underhill Center, maybe go to the trails at Cranebrook, or maybe just, I've had enough of the woods, I'm gonna go back toward Pleasant Valley on Irish Settlement Road. So
so,
no, it is not intended to be a place where you would park a car and then access trails from there.
okay,
There's been no provision made for parking of cars.
all right. We can revisit that whole topic later, but I just wanted to ask the applicant that. The other question I have is, it looked like the bridge was sturdy to me when I went out
It's
there.
sturdy.
Yes, yeah, okay. Just confirming with an engineer. Okay. Any other questions?
So In terms of legal, the entities here are the property owners, landowners, Nicole and Elizabeth, and the Brewster River Mountain Bike Club. Are they, since it lists them as the applicant, but I'm trying to understand from a legal standpoint if they really are the applicant, because this is a permit being issued to somebody constructing the development item on their land. So how are they technically involved? Are they allowed to be the applicant?
Yeah, I mean, in this situation, they're effectively the landowner's agent. They got approval from the landowner. They applied for the application. Once they got the application, they went and did the work. The key part is they got approval from the landowner to do the work.
Okay, so they can be the applicant.
So as long as there's landowner approval with a signature, which is documented in the zoning application, it's okay from the town's point of view. It runs with the land, so it's always going to be the match, Elizabeth and sorry, it'll run with their land. So it won't actually be held by Brewster River Mountain Bike Club. They're just doing the work because it's their bridge. They're doing the legwork to get it done.
And the owners could rip it down at any time
If they decide they don't want it, they can tear it out. Brewster River wouldn't have much say in it.
So then I guess the two questions, I'm not sure if they're addressed. I think maybe they're addressed to both. The first is this trail accessible or allowable for public use? I realize non-motorized.
Well, I think, and not in the sense that there's a map or anything, or that it would be on the internet or anything like that, but I don't think Lizzie and Nicole are gonna go out there and tell people they can't walk on it or bike on it.
Can I answer that too, or try anyway? I'm also I'm the newest member of the club board, and as a sidebar, I was on the zoning board for years, so thank you, because I know this can be awful sitting around, like dealing with this. I have trail runs through my land that I inherited when I bought it. It was actually what was called Pony Club Trail back then, which is part of what Mike is talking about. And we see the most frequent uses from bikers, but the second most is actually from hunters back there. So I anticipate that these, depending upon whether people post or not, that deer they take the path of least resistance. So they end up using a lot of these trails. So we see a lot of activity there too. So I think it's more whether people are posting points of access, so if it's not posted, someone will walk in, and I see a lot of runners out there. You two are both runners. My wife's a runner. So I'm just pointing that out from an access perspective, short of a posted sign, I see people in there, with varying uses, intended uses.
Okay.
Does that help?
Yeah, just sort of for the record, then the landowners and the Brewster River Mountain Bike Club are stating that it's the public is allowed to use that trail, basically.
Yes, the trails that we have gotten landowner permission to create, maintain, or whatever, the ask of the landowner is, can we use it? If we can we work on it? If we can work on it or maintain it, that's with their blessing, and then they can, in fact, even in the case of my own land, there was a period where we shut our trails down completely and everybody respected it, because we had a dog that would run away every time a bike came through. The dog was gone. Am I giving you too much information?
It's a charming story.
The landowner can shut it down. The bike club doesn't take an approach of like, well, you said it's the landowner says it's over, it's over.
I think that Mark's getting the bigger picture, and I think that we're identifying the bridge. I mean, the bridge is our issue tonight, but that's sort of the bigger picture that Mark's getting. Right.
One last question, and don't read anything into this question.
And who's this to, Mark?
Well, I'm not sure. It's either one of the two parties. I assume it's the Brewster River Mountain Bike Club. Can you explain why a permit was not obtained a priori?
It was a completely ignorant.
Just an oversight.
A big oversight. If we knew the stir this would have created, not only would we have done it, we would have asked. Well, anyway, I would have just wanted to know what people thought.
I would have thought that Mike should have answered that, except that you're the secretary, so probably you were the person who was wrong.
No, he's the secretary. No, I'm just the new guy.
Elizabeth, our club is conveniently in Maine tonight.
Yeah, crazy how he was.
Okay.
No, we realize that we really messed up. We should have known. I never read through the regulations. And it's just one of those things, you know, get excited about a new trail connection and we're all gung ho to get it in.
And while I
So,
totally
you know,
agree with this gentleman's point of view, you had said something about when that bridge down there was, you know, like was down there, you could lift it up or whatever. Totally get that. But there was the, oh, well, this is where it used to come through. This is where it makes sense. Walk up the side.
Right.
And then it's like, this is good. This will work.
And
you know?
actually, there's nothing in our zoning regs about bridges. We really had to think through the definition of development and look at that and analyze that. So it wasn't that easy a thing to understand,
And we,
perhaps.
we did.
Okay, so any
Can I say
more?
something, Peggy?
Yes, please.
On that same point, it wasn't even clear to me as the town's representative when it came to me that they needed a permit.
Right.
It's
You have to
it's
reach
as
out.
clear as mud. It took a lot of time with this couple of discussions with the town attorney to really come to the conclusion that, yeah, it should have been permitted.
Right.
And it's making me come to the conclusion that as we consider bylaw changes with the new town plan, this is something we'll have to discuss going
Right.
forward.
Good
What needs, at least needs to be more clarity, whether things are loosened or strength, whatever we do, it has to be more clear for the person managing it or the applicants, because it wasn't clear to any of us at first.
Any more issues that the DRB feels they need clarity on from Kale or the applicant? Okay, then we'll turn to the public. So we'll now take comments from the public who wish to speak about the application. And let's try and remember the things that were talked about during the site visit, and let's try and address everything to the board, please. And if you'll raise your hand if you have something to say, and we're going to try to keep it to just a few minutes. David.
First, I'd just like to say that what I submitted is my sworn testimony, just to get that out of,
Okay.
you know, I swear to all that. But I have two questions. One for Dan, where would a hunter park if they were using that?
On my land.
Oh, it's one for us, and we'll ask Dan. So you want to know where?
Okay, so the number of users that the Brewster River Mountain Bike Club anticipates using that. And then in the case of, because hunting was brought up, where on earth hunters would be parking if they're using that as an access point?
Okay.
Because I've been plagued by parking issues and trespass issues on my property on New Road / Fuller Road, Cranbrook Trail. And it seems like that's going to have more problems with parking.
And could I ask you, David, how far away mileage-wise is your own access or your land from there, would you say?
I would say it's probably about 1 mile.
Okay.
Because they're Fuller Road 11, right? I believe that's your address?
Okay. On Irish settlement.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I think Jess is.
Jessica's, sorry. I must
Okay.
have-
So
Jessica-
about a mile.
Yeah,
Give
so
or
about
take.
a mile.
Now, are
But
those,
that's where they're going to be directed to.
okay, and you said, two questions. So were those your two, or did you have another one?
Yep, no, that was me.
That was it?
And just making sure that what I submitted was recognized as sworn testimony.
Okay, and you know what, if we could, I've got those questions highlighted. If anybody else has any more questions, could we come elicit those questions, and then we'll go back and have the applicant answer them? Any more questions? Yes, Jeff.
This goes back to the.
Jeff Moulton.
Yeah, so
Okay.
Jeff Moulton, this goes back to the public versus Brewster River Club. If I'm not a member of the Brewster River Club, do I have right to be there? It's the public or
Right
not?
to be where, on the bridge?
On the bridge or walking
Okay.
across their land or not? To
Okay,
me, public is people from Massachusetts that want to ride their bike through. You know, they have a pulse, they're public, or is it only members of the club?
okay,
That's not clear to me.
all right. Any other questions that you might have?
To the club or to the town?
To us, then through us to the,
Through you to the club, no.
okay. I wanted to bring up one other point that David had an issue about site distances, and
Yeah.
Jeff also, we'll discuss that. And
Then I do have one more. Has anyone looked at, I disagree with if it's a bridge or access private or public, but I think the town regs specify any grading within the town right of way, any structures within rights of way. There's a power line right over it. There's has to be all sorts of like sign off from the electric company to put
For-
structures in the electric company's right of way and the town's right of way.
Oh.
then we look into those things and grading along the road right away. My biggest concern is safety. I'm not sure how I could stop to see a small child coming or going in that area.
So it's really a sight distance issue that
Yeah,
you've got with it. Okay. All right.
On top of that, it's just, I'm afraid of coming over the culverts and seeing them don't go out. There's no issue.
Understandable.
There's nothing I can do.
Yeah. Okay, any other questions or issues to bring up for the applicant or?
I was still confused about the need for variance for encroaching on the right of way of the town road. I mean, wouldn't that mean that every driveway or every path out to the road would require a variance?
It's for the structure of the bridge,
It's for
not the
development.
path itself.
So
Yeah.
that's considered something different than if it were just a path and there was no need for a bridge over the brook.
Yep.
Right.
So path
Trails are
down.
exempt, structures are not. So the structure of the bridge can't be in the front setback.
So if you had to build a bridge at the end of your driveway, then that would be the same thing.
Yeah.
It's slightly different with an access permit, but it would still have to be reviewed in a similar way.
Any other questions, issues? Okay, should we talk about that? Who's going to represent you're going to
Well, I
represent
will
Danny
on the
or-
first question because
Okay.
David asked
Okay.
me, and I think first off, I think it's a very fair question. I just want whatever the record is or whatever to note that because
And this is Danny
this is
talking?
Danny talking, I guess responding to you for Dave, who I'm not supposed to look at.
Right. No,
Officially.
just me. Look at my
Look
eyes.
at your eyes.
Right.
We have had issues down on my end of the valley with hunters too. My son and I hunt. We avidly hunt, but it's a fair question, you know. And I think what we have done on my property is ask people to not park like on our driveway. They pull up and pull in there, and you know we used to. Tom Cook used to give us advice. He was one of the game wardens about how to manage hunter access, you know. And it was certainly not our. I can't.
So you're saying it's the property owner's responsibility to manage?
Well, yes, but I also understand his point, like, well, here's this new point of access, you know, what's gonna stop, 300s from blocking the other end of my road, and now I can't get in here. Like, I really do get that, because that can happen, but I would just say that what I would offer, would be something like, and I'm just winging this here, but, some nicely put together signs that said, please no parking here under any conditions or something. But that's up to the town. But we've done that. Like on my driveway, the main bike trail goes right across my driveway, and the bike club, this was way before I was on the board. We were concerned about my teenage daughter ripping down the driveway in her car and hitting somebody. So the club made up little stop signs, and it says, look, with arrows pointing both ways, and people brake when they come there. They're not stupid. I mean, and then last but not least, on the point about line of sight, I think that's a very fair point of view. And I think that we need to establish if the line of sight is there for people to come out of there safely. And if they're not, then we need to address that. I mean, it's not, no one's looking to get anybody hurt. So if you folks, as the DRB, determine that these folks, that they're the concern they raise, which is a very valid concern, can a 5-year-old coming up on a bike with mom or dad be seen? That I don't think that is worthy of debate. No one wants anybody getting hurt. Right. So it's just either the answer is yes or no. Does it have the line of sight required? If it does, great. If it doesn't, then something's got to change.
Right. And
like we never, I can tell you, never thought like of line of sight because the road is so straight there. But now that the vegetation has grown in more, like I saw it when they were further down the road looking up, I was like, okay, it's a fair point.
I couldn't see David until he was up the road.
Right,
really.
So it's a fair
and
point.
He was walking on a bicycle. It might be, leaning.
Yeah. So the point is, let's fix it. Let's, because again, this was done with absolutely no, bad intent. Nobody wants anybody getting hurt. And the points that get raised, hindsight, you're like, oh yeah, maybe, but you can't go much further up because it's so steep to get there. So maybe it's just, Yes, signs or perhaps the local, the adjacent property owner suggests, I don't know how this
The
works.
timer just.
Timer
ticking. Mike.
I was just thinking when that little demonstration, the 15 minutes with a brush saw or a sickle or a machete, we could take out some of that low growing, small diameter shrubbery kind of stuff in a little triangle and you'd be able to see it.
That'd be great, but you're not allowed to without town permission.
I think we could talk to the town about that.
Well, the DRB may require that. So we have the purview of looking at this from a conditional use review. So we should look at things like sightline. There is another question that David had of how many users. Which one of you is going to answer?
I'll try that.
Or maybe Pat's going to
No, I
answer.
just have I mean, it's a simple enough thing to put a little stop sign at that end of that bridge. There's a road, stop. Mountain bikers need to stop. I don't think there's a lot of traffic on a class 4 road, and I don't think they're going terribly fast. So, and certainly somebody coming up the hill from the bridge is not going fast, but there's room for them to stop, so you can put a little stop sign there. I mean, that's certainly solves the issue. And then you cut the brush back a little.
Yeah, well, it's, what is it, 225 feet from that access point on, from Fuller Road down to Irish Settlement, so 225 is, and it seems to me, it's pretty straight and it's pretty far. And looking back up, it seems like it's about the same, so it looks like a pretty good sight distance.
Yeah, I mean.
And the clear paths,
Yeah.
site triangles usually like 30 feet.
Does anyone know the speed limit on Fuller Road? Is it 25? 35, okay.
Okay, is there a sign actually?
No, but there's a special rule that says any road in town that doesn't have postings 35.
Okay,
So it's not posted.
okay.
And there's also no parking signs all along the road.
That'd be written on.
Along Fuller Road?
Yeah, all the class 4 roads have no like parking in the winter. No
Did you say there are actually signs or that's just understood?
I believe, as of last year, where the guardrails were, there was a sign.
Okay. Mike, you were going to answer about the number of users, and I think you were, and David was talking about the number of users going over the bridge, I guess.
Well, we have no way to counter or anything, but I would say that section of the trail system is probably on the lower use end of things. Personally, my guess is if you had 6 riders come out there onto Fuller Road on a Saturday or a Sunday, which is obviously when the trails are most active, that would be probably a busy day at that point. But I don't know what your experience has been as landowners.
We really only noticed a handful of people.
Okay, thus far, okay. Jeff?
And when there's special events, the traffic goes up a lot.
Special events?
Yes, I could speak to that.
Okay.
We have an event every year. This will be the 16th year. It's called the Tour de Valley. And it's a big event.
Yeah.
A lot of riders, and we do ride up in that direction. So on that one day, which will be August 21st,
Okay.
and I don't know how we handle things if we don't get an approval for this bridge by then. There could be a lot of people coming out of there on that one day.
Okay. All right.
Like on the
That's
order
good.
of
No, not good.
hundreds, on the order of
There
hundreds.
would be a lot of people.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
don't know about hundreds.
Not hundreds, but 800, that's a very reasonable
Okay.
estimate.
That's good to
And
know.
it's worth noting, I guess, that historically, because that section wasn't open, people would go out on and ride Irish Settlement. And I'm just thinking about this little kid thing, like which is safer or better. And that's not my job. That's what we're all talking
Okay.
about with these lines of sight and everything. And it's just, but that's a very good, that's a fair point. And but that is one day a year, and we could certainly and do give property owners notice or whatever. But if there's a special request for the way that would be people would be notified, we'd be happy to
And there may be.
do that.
Okay.
Sure.
So following along with the routine, I'm supposed to ask if anyone, the applicants or the representatives want to respond to anything. So we've responded.
I think we missed one question.
Oh, we did?
Is it the public or club member?
Right.
Is it open to the public or just? club
Yeah,
members?
oh, okay. Yes, you're right. Sorry, Jeff, that was yours. And I had an arrow beside it.
Well, as I said before, this is not an advertised trail
Right.
system. But There's nothing to say that somebody who's not a BRMVC member couldn't use it.
If I could ride my bike that far, could I go over that?
Yes, indeed.
You could walk it. You would probably have to call the ambulance if I did that, but, okay. Good, thank
So
you.
is the consensus, it's public,
Mhm.
so like, you don't have to be a member,
Mhm.
anybody and everybody.
We're not members. We
I'm-
use-
I'm sure they're not saying that they'd like it advertised to the public. We have trails right beside us. The landowner has his friends come up and use it all the time, and he's really willing to allow anybody to use it, but he doesn't want it advertised.
Well, I think that's true of your bike club also.
Okay, all right, folks. So, any final comments from the members of the public, the PZA, other attendees? Applicants? No?
I have a
About covered it all?
I had a quick chance to read Dave Demarest's opposition to all this. And I think you should take some of what's said with a grain of salt. And I also find it interesting that he would have such opposition to this when he purposely rode his motorcycle through the closed to motorized vehicles Cranebrook Trail to get here to this meeting tonight.
Okay, thank you, Mike.
May I respond to that? With just
You may
one
respond.
point?
Yeah,
It is true, I do continue to use the entire corridor of County Highway 26. And it would have been great to actually have cooperation between landowners and the public and trail users to actually maintain that, so it'd be more reasonably usable by all.
okay,
And when this bridge was built, they could have also been helping with Green Up Day with the illegal dump items on public Cranebrook Trail.
that's right. Thank you.
So,
You did say that, that's right. Thank you. Okay, the board, need to circle around with anything? Okay,
I'd just like
Oh,
to make a
oh.
comment if I could.
would you remind us?
I'm
of your
Pam
name?
Billings, yes. And as far as the
And you'll address us.
the bike club, I just want to make sure that you guys understand how much the bike club does do for the community. And just because some people were working on this, they were doing it as a community service for people to be able to have a public trail then to be able to use and not go on Irish settlement. And how much they do for their landowners and their community. Just wanted to put that out there because I don't think that that's fair. And
Pam, are you a member of the bike club? You are? Okay.
And as far as the safety, I would much rather have my kids on a trail that came to a head of a road than on Irish Settlement Road on their bikes because of the speed of the safety. So, and the sight lines and yeah, overall safety, I'd much rather have them off the road than and on a trail.
Okay, thank you.
We would agree with
Okay.
that. The only real difference, I'm sorry.
Jeff?
is-
Hello, Jeff.
Is that, we're the ones driving on the road. We're gonna be the ones that run into something.
Yes, and you have children, so you can understand both sides of it, for sure. Okay, thank you. So, does the board have any more questions or any more issues that need to be discussed? Kale, do you have anything else you need to say?
Nope.
Okay, does the board feel it has enough information at this point to make a decision on the application? And if so, I would like to ask for a motion to close the evidentiary portion of the hearing. If you feel you have enough information. If you don't, we would continue the hearing to a later date.
I make a motion to close the evidentiary period of the hearing.
Does anybody second that? Any discussion? And what does Charlie say? Matt has a question.
No.
Matt has a turned lip, you know?
I'm giving you a cue.
Yes, what does Charlie say now? All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. Right. So now that the board has enough information and we've closed the evidentiary portion of the hearing, would you like to vote to approve or deny the application in open session. And would you like to discuss it in open session or in closed deliberation? So I'd like a motion from someone to do something with this information.
Make a motion to vote in favor or against in public, and then in closed session to
craft
our decision.
Okay, and I think you actually have to make the motion to do one or the other. You have to vote to approve or deny it.
Okay, so I will vote to approve.
The application in open session.
That is my motion.
Okay, to approve the application in open session and to deliberate, to craft the decision in closed deliberation. Matt has made that motion. Does anyone else want to comment on that, to second it?
I'll second it.
You'll second it. Okay, any discussion that needs to happen before we vote on that? Okay, then I'd like a vote on approving the application here in open session and crafting it in closed deliberation. How many are wanting to do that? All right, the ayes definitely have it. All right, thank you. We have just approved it, and we will craft the decision in closed deliberation. And within 45 days from this hearing, the Planning and Zoning Administrator, on behalf of the board, will send a copy of the decision to the applicant, the representatives, and those who have participated in tonight's hearing. A 30-day appeal period will begin on the date the decision is signed. The letter will outline the next steps in the process. If there are no other comments or questions, we'll close this portion of the meeting, except I just want to say that we've just approved the bridge, but this is conditional use, so there will be conditions, things that we've heard tonight. We will craft our decision given what we've heard, and that will be a part of the decision. It takes us up to 45 days because we go back and forth on email and discussing what's important to us.
I understand.
Yes, that isn't in the notes here, but yes, what do I do? All right,
So,
Jeff.
my understanding is it's been approved, but can it currently be used or not used?
That's my question.
Well, this is a use and not an actual construction issue. So what do we typically would say to somebody, you have to wait to construct your building for the decision has come out and you wait the appeal period, but I don't know that that's applicable to this.
I'm not so sure either, to be honest.
Is that a question that has to go to the lawyer?
No, I think it's something I can figure out. I just don't know off the top of my head. I'll have to dig into it tomorrow.
It may depend on like some of the conditions we decide on, or.
Well, that'll take some time to craft those decisions.
And that's true, because we may end up saying that sight lines have to be cleared and signs have to be put up and.
So I know I have no say in this, other than among people that aren't so excited about it.
Yeah.
But, maybe you could put up some orange ribbons on the day of the big tour and just let this one pass. I don't know. It's clear I won't be there that day, but it's a catch-22. It's either open or closed, but if people are already coming, I don't know how you stop that mess. So I'd rather be safe than.
That's a good point.
We would, if asked though by this board and with respect to the property, the other property owners, if you say it can't get crossed until this has all happened, it's not gonna get crossed.
I think what we'll have to do is, we'll have to have, I think with Cal, we can have you research this.
Yeah, I'll have to dig into it tomorrow.
I think Cal can research this and probably give some.
Can I get your email before you leave, Jeff? And I'll shoot you an email on that.
Mike?
I was just going to say that if we were to use it for the Tour de Valley, or even between now and Tour de Valley, I think it behooves us to go out there and eliminate some of that low growing stuff that makes the sightline difficult toward Irish Settlement Road. Someone spoke that, well, we need town permission to do that. So I don't know if you folks could give us permission to do that or not, but I think that we should do that if we're going to use it. because David brought up a good point about you can't really see very well.
It's a really very good point.
I'll talk
When
with
we
you.
built it wasn't like that. There wasn't much drawing, so.
Right.
I'll talk with you later this week and maybe we can set something up with the road foreman, because he needs to come look at that other bike access also. Maybe we can come up and look at that. I know it has nothing to do, but we could, me and him could do it at the same time. And he can just confirm whether it's okay for you guys to clear that brush at the same time.
So if no other comments or questions or concerns, I think we've got a route here that we can take. We'll be working on the decision. Kale's going to communicate with you and with us about maybe some things that need to happen right now that might work out. And we'll just call this portion of the meeting over. We've got some other things we need to take care of, meeting minutes and the like. So thank you very much. Thank you all.
Thank you. Do you want us to put our chairs back anywhere?
No.
We'll take care of it. Thank you though.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Okay. So, all right, bio break. Yes, bio break.
Bio break, what's that?
And Kale,
Oh.
that's the one who came up with it.
I thought people always bring snacks to this thing.
I'm sorry. So
How about buy a break? I'm hungry.
Look a little less contentious than I
Thank you
expected
for
after the
being
site
here.
visit.
Mark,
People were respectful.
Brian, thank you for being here. And also gave me confidence that you two are, you know, engineering, planning, civil, landscaping, and kind of that gave me confidence.
Are we recording? Are we recording
Yes.
now?
We are still recording unless we go into the deliberative session.
Well, why don't we, Dan is here for the minutes. Can we talk about that?
Yep.
I sent a draft to earlier today that did really nothing other than I decided to put some commas and remove some commas and do a little grammatical this and that for fun. But there was only one correction, that Dan was the person who said we should make sure we address the wetlands and not forget that. And you had it as Mark.
Oh, okay.
So I just corrected that. That's the only substantial change to the minutes.
That's the Poker Hill.
That was the Poker Hill, the Matthew, yes.
497 Poker Hill.
Yes. So we're talking about minutes right now and whether they can be approved or not.
For the last meeting?
For the last meeting. Oh, okay.
Sorry.
We did
Wait
really.
a minute.
Unless we.
Training was here.
4,
Mark was here.
5. Oh,
I was here.
So I make a motion to approve the minutes from July 19th.
I second that motion. Oh, sorry.
you do it. I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
That's what I'm supposed to say. All in favor, right? Aye. All opposed? No, the ayes have it. I know, but I'm so confused and nervous.
You did great.
Yeah.
I was thanking God you were here.
I just told Karen that what I was trying to do would be so boring, that everybody would fall asleep and there'd be no energy.
No.
Dan, thank you.
Good luck
Thanks
with
for sitting through
deliberation.
all that.
Yeah.
Bye.
Okay, so what else, Hal, do we need to do? Do we need to talk about what's coming up next, or? Let's see if I can just say the Historical Society decision went through today, so that's done. And I think Matthew sketched, did Charlie?
I think I got something from Charlie today as well on Matthew.
So that's done.
So we're all caught up?
Yep.
I keep track.
Yep,
Yeah.
no, we're all caught up. And I believe Mr. Chapik is tonight.
Oh,
Is that right?
is that right?
Oh,
Well, I couldn't.
is that why you're making that face? I'm like, I could say something.
I said something in the car on the way back with Kale.
How's that work? You guys rotate or?
Yes, we have a list.
We have a list.
Yeah.
Let's put Mark on the list, and Mark on the list.
No.
That was
That's the
amazing
benefit of
fact.
being an
He dropped it off.
So, you are both going to be on the email deliberation too, by the way. And so I don't know if you remember how we do it or not, but you end up, what you do is you change the date and you change the draft number. So if you get draft 1 and it's today's date.
When you keep it the old version of Word, right?
You keep it in the old version of Word.
Word 97.
It's best if when you're working on a decision that you send an email out to everybody and say, I'm working on it right now because we've overlapped sometimes and then causes a problem.
Okay. So do we discuss conditions we want to talk about, or does that just go into everyone writes up there?
It would be great to discuss right now, which would mean that we turn off the
Yeah,
recording. Do we have anything else that we need to cover, Kale? Like, what's coming up?
Yeah, the only other thing is I have been informed by the Edgemont House people that they're ready, getting so sometime potentially after Fuller, we'll be back up to.
I meant potentially after Fuller. You mean after?
Fuller is the next hearing on the 16th, the wedding barn, which will also be contentious.
Oh, wait a minute. You know what? When you said Fuller, I was thinking Fuller Road.
No, it used to be Potvin. They applied for the barn. She got married and now it's Fuller.
Okay.
Same person.
So that's in
2 weeks.
So they want to build a barn.
They have a more detailed assessment
wedding barn.
They have
and
the house
business
now.
plan, and that I haven't had a chance to review it, but they claim it addresses the concerns of the last hearing. I can't say what it says.
Yeah.
That's what I
Need
get.
all that information well in advance.
Right.
I'll do my best to get it out Friday or Monday, so you have time to look at it, but
And you alternates are welcome. You are welcome to come anytime.
Yep.
This one will be interesting because it's different.
Okay.
Okay, because it's a at-home business, they want it, so it's a slightly different perspective and it would be really
Listen
interesting.
up.
You don't have to write anything.
I've been in Tom Sawyer here.
Yeah.
So who is our job captain? You're the job
Karen.
captain.
Yeah,
Right up there in
because
yellow.
we had to switch because
Oh, yeah.
tonight I couldn't do it up.
Oh, right, okay. All right, so Karen's the job captain for that, and that's on the 18th, you said? Or
16th.
16th, all right, lovely,
And then the
okay.
beginning of September, assuming that Edgemont House gets it in a time, it sounds like they will.
Oh,
Is that the
You know-
final?
Yeah, it'll be finally, so they got
all
their
right.
wildlife assessment done already, incorporated stuff.
Who's the job captain?
Charlie.
No, that will be,
But
No,
does it go back to
we-
Charlie?
It goes back to Charlie.
Because Charlie to just.
Yeah.
no, Charlie did, oh, yeah, for continuity.
Was
Yeah,
he the one who did it?
Yeah.
Okay, so Edgemont.
yeah, he did Evans, Edgemont
Okay.
before, so it would go back to Charlie,
All
so
right.
Dan gets a break.
I'm a little sad with the houses on Pleasant Valley Road, but still myself.
Oh, you
Oh,
want
yeah.
Just throw in,
Are those developer or personal?
I don't know, but that was a major wildlife corridor.
The ones across the
Holy
street.
moly,
Yeah.
I was shocked when I went by there.
Oh.
I was
By the
We almost
stone
had
house.
both.
170,
Well,
160.
That was the connector from the whole Mansfield side to the Mayfield.
How many lots were back there?
Who's this at? Where's
It
that?
was Marion.
McMastineau.
Wasn't that a DRB?
They got, apparently there was a subdivision years, I didn't get through all the details. It sounds like because there had been a subdivision that hadn't quite reflected on the tax map, maybe. I'm not sure all the details. Andrew figured it out and realized it had already been subdivided, so there was no reason to bring it before the DRB. And without the DRB, there's not a whole lot that we can say about clearing their land.
And they did clear their land.
They certainly did.
Wow.
That was a
That is
50
so
property
sad.
maybe?
It was Marion Lee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think she subdivided it years ago, and there was some confusion about whether that actually happened, but it had.
I think they had to subdivide off the stone house because that used to be part of the parcel way back.
Mhm.
And then Mary and Leon lived in one of the houses on the right side going
Mhm.
north. And when they died, they didn't have any children. I don't know what happened to the property.
So-
They're both deceased.
You know that the planning commission and the conservation commission have this it's gonna be a long time, this process going about mapping our natural resources, so.
It's a whole other committee for that.
Hopefully one day it'll get into the zoning regs. Maybe there's some overlay district where you can't be clear cutting and you can't be developing.
Well, the state would like that because that goes along with that.
That could even be,
They actually have a whole program right now encouraging towns to do this.
Yeah.
we could even do that without an overlay if we wanted to just put something about clearing in the bylaws.
Well, the planning commission needs
I
to
don't
do
know
that,
about that.
otherwise we can't.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's coming up. Their town plan should be approved shortly, and once that's done, they're
Yeah, the only,
moving forward to bylaw stuff in the near
That's
future.
what would happen when they're in bylaws.
Yeah, they've been working on the planning commit, the new town plan for like the last 3 years.
Yep.
And once that's done, they're moving forward with bylaws. And at the moment, they're focusing more on trying to take advantage of some of this ARPA money, like all the grants out there.
Yeah.
But some of that might involve getting help with the bylaw amendments.
see,
Okay.
the problem is that wildlife corridor is
Once it's gone, it's gone.
gone.
Yeah, you gotta move
And,
fast.
and the other thing is that all those properties, or many of them, are all posted, which is changes the complexion of Underhill too.
Yeah.
Definitely.
It's sad. We
Yeah.
gotta get going as fast as we can.
Well, yeah.
There's still trails back behind those, so behind it.
Well,
you can
maybe
still-
the-
But
the
are there
Madonna
existing
Vaca.
trails? And are there deer trails?
No, it's all people trails.
I've had to stop my car, bobcats, bear, everything right across, right in that one
Oh,
spot.
that's so
Yeah.
sad.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a little wetland right there that they probably like to go by.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, that
they don't
wetland-
like people's backyards, so that was the one uninterrupted stretch as everybody's done this on Pleasant Valley Road.
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay.
That wet area if you're talking about on the left going north, now is officially going to be mapped as a class 2 wetland in
it's
the
not too late.
iNaturalist. And the
Well, this
state-
one is on the right heading to the center,
Oh, the,
and it's right on the edge of the driveway. Like the driveway's just outside of the buffer. It's
Let's say
just
fill it
north
in
of the
and
new
mow it.
driveway is the wetlands. It's an old pond there with some
But
wetlands.
it's on the subdivided property, so somebody can fill it in and mow it and do whatever they want.
no, I don't think they.
No, I think it's mapped.
Because the access to that middle lot is a shared driveway. It's around the lot.
Yep, it goes around the wetlands.
It'd
so
be nice if
it's-
people pay attention to that. Good, because that's an old subdivision.
Yeah.
Well, they
probably
just
have to.
applied for all the permits not long before I started, so Andrew definitely looked for the wetlands and all. He did a good job, as much as he could.
Okay.
Just didn't have the foothold to tell them they couldn't clear.
Can we circle back to conditions? Can we turn off our recording? and stuff?
We probably need
Signing
to
off,
motion to go.
motion to adjourn,
No, I
motion
make a
to-
motion to move it
Or
to
to
deliberation.
deliberative.
A deliberative
No,
session.
not session, it is deliberative.
Deliberative.
You were right. No,
Deliberation.
Deliberation, closed deliberation.
I third.
You third, I'll squeeze in there.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.